we managed to close 20 deals in our first full year. Yeah. And then now we are at 5 assignments.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Ground Up Podcast. My name is Matt Walton, here with my co-host Matt Huber again. We are here with a special guest, somebody who has helped me so much. If not even from the beginning of in the real estate career. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Hi. Thank you.
I'm good. How are you?
Doing really good. Thank you so much for being here. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about everything here, as much as we can get into in the short time that we have. But we know that you know a lot of information about just creative finance in general. But what do you focus on specifically?
So my main business is temporary housing. When I started out in real estate, the funny thing is I bought 4 properties in 7 months from reading a book. I basically followed instructions, read this book, bought 4 houses in a state that I had never been to, never seen any of these houses. I still haven't seen any of these houses to this date. But as I started kind of diving into buying real estate, I realized that I was going to run out of money really fast. I did a home equity line of credit in order to buy my first 4 properties. So technically, I got 4 houses with no money out of my pocket, but I didn't realize that I was using a creative strategy when I used my HELOC. So I went down this rabbit hole of watching YouTube, trying to figure out how to buy houses without using my own money. Because again, at some point you're going to run out. And then I started getting stalked on YouTube. That's my running joke by this guy, Pace Morbeam. And the rest is history. I joined that community, learned a ton about how to talk to sellers, which I was completely afraid of because I am still, in my mind, an introvert. And so I was afraid to pick up the phone. Kanye West had to trick me in order to get on the phone and talk to people. I would literally play music in my ear on my phone. And then when the phone would ring, the music stops. And then it's like, oh my God, please don't answer the phone. Please don't answer the phone. And then if they did, it's like, now what do I do?
Yep.
So one of the big things I learned was how to get comfortable being uncomfortable and just learn the process of, how to help people through a process and not make it about me first. And so that's kind of what drove me down into, okay, I think I'm ready to buy houses on the creative side, but then what am I going to do with them is the question. So you can do long-term rentals. You can do short-term rentals. You can do Section 8. You could do so many different things, but the thing that I kept coming back to was temporary housing. I mostly work with families that are displaced by insurance claims because I have a 20-year background in insurance, and I used to be a catastrophe adjuster. So this is a good way for me to be able to serve those clients and still stay in real estate and make money at the same time.
I want to talk to you and please tell us a little bit about yourself and your business here, what you guys are currently doing, where your market is, and how you guys are doing in real estate right now.
Of course. So, Aditya and I started in real estate about a little over a year ago now, October 2023. We didn't know anything about real estate, but we knew we didn't want to work until we were 65, which is the retirement age here in Spain. So we did some research and we found that real estate was something that most people that have financial freedom own or do. So, we figured that was the way. So we did some research, we started asking questions, and we found that there was something called wholesaling that could help us get into the real estate world with little money and no knowledge at all. So that's when we joined asset flipping. Like I said, almost a year and a half ago. And we just started going through the modules. He was in college at the time. I said he because he's back there, Adit, my partner. And I was working as a nurse. It took us a month to get through the modules, but we started taking action real quick, and I think that's what helped us get results so quickly. It wasn't perfect, but I think we talked to enough people and made things right just to get our first deal closed in a little over 2 months after joining.
Nice.
And now 2024 was a great year. I had a rough start. January and February were dry months for us because we're still learning a little bit. We managed to get 2 deals done in December 2023, and then January and February were dry. So it was kind of like, the downhill, the roller coaster real estate is. But after that, March was great, and then the rest of the year was great. We managed to close 20 deals in our first whole year. Yeah. And then now we are at 5 assignments 2025 today as of 24th of January.
But tell us a little bit about wholesaling. Where are you wholesaling at? And then tell us a little bit about Wholetech too.
So I wholesale in all of Florida and Las Vegas. Florida is where a majority of my deals happen. It's where I do a lot of my JVs, if I do any JVs. Vegas is just a little side pocket area. It's where I started. So I kind of stay loyal to that area, but it's not a huge producer. It's probably like 2-3 deals at most a month, if that. Usually it's one.
Okay.
And then
Yeah.
Wholetech. You want me to go into Wholetech?
Yeah, go into Wholetech. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So Wholetech is our AI CRM. It's also a data source. So something like Privy, PropStream, PropWire, batch leads, anything like that is already built into Wholetech. So you can go into what we call as leads feed. That would be your news feed for leads, basically. You click and add a single property or multiple properties to the system. The AI will negotiate on those deals based on the math that's automatically populated. Also inside of our leads feed area, you can also find, let's say you pull up 123 ABC Street. You get all your data there like you normally would see on Privy, batch leads, whatever. When you scroll down to the bottom, you also see the buyers section, which shows you the name, number, and the property that a suggested buyer might own that would be interested in purchasing that subject property.
So in like one click, you're finding properties and you're finding buyers.
One click, you're finding properties, buyers, and your AI is negotiating the deal.
Let me ask you this. When you have those couple of down months where you're not pulling any deals versus those months where right now you were telling us you're pacing to have a really, really solid month this month, what changes in your perspective in the real estate world where all of your income depends on you getting a deal closed or getting one over? So those lean months versus those big months, same mentality, same focus, same drive, or is there a shift in thought during those periods?
I mean, the mentality is the same. I know there's gonna be dry months or better months than other ones, but the work is always the same. I know that the more I do, the more results I'll get. So if I do the opposite, if I stop doing the work, I'm not gonna get any results. So I just gotta do the same through those months that are worse than others. And of course, it can break you down a little bit, and when you don't see results, it can be frustrating. But you just keep doing the work. That's it.
So what are some of the key differences that you look for in a property that you're going to take on and buy that you would take on versus like someone who's going to flip, someone's going to do a long-term rental or something like that versus your midterm rental here? Like what is the differences in the properties that you're looking for that would be great for your strategy versus somebody else's?
So I still look for a lot of the same base things. And I think that's where people really get messed up, because what they're looking for first is how can I maximize like the amount of money that I'm bringing in? But the thing you always have to think about is, if this doesn't work, what's my backup plan? And we should all be thinking about that, but a lot of people don't. So in this instance, I always look to make sure it cash flows as a long-term rental. The only way that I would say, if you're a seasoned person who already has more demand than you have supply, then you worrying about it cash flowing as a long-term rental isn't that big of a deal, because you already have the demand coming in, so you know it's going to work. But if you don't, long-term rental is my first thing. That's always where I start, as a pencil out. And then on the creative finance side, just because someone says yes does not mean that you have to. Matt, you and I have talked about this so many times, right? A 2.5% interest rate does not pay the mortgage. Right? It brings your payment down, but it doesn't pay the mortgage. So I always look for the long-term rental rate. And then I'm comparing to what industries are in the area, like who is it that I'm going to serve. If I go buy a property I want to use as a furnished house, but there's a population of like 1,000 people, who's coming there? Nobody. So it's already going to be hard enough in those instances to rent long-term rent. So me picking a place like that makes no sense, because I'm just going to end up paying the bill myself, which nobody wants to do. The whole point of getting into real estate is to make money, not give it away.
So tell me about the deals you're doing currently over in Florida and Vegas. You're getting them through wholesale, agent outreach.
So we don't do a traditional sense of agent outreach. We're not calling a list of 5,000 agents every day. That honestly, in my point of view, is a waste of time. I
Mhm.
am very much I've got this much time in a day. I
Yeah.
need to do what's going to be the most productive and income producing.
Mhm.
So what I do is I go and find the agents who already have the properties that I have. We call them unicorn agents.
Mhm.
We go and find them. They're most likely going to have that same property again.
Mhm.
The reason we choose to do agents instead of sellers is because typically one seller is one house, whereas one agent can lead you to 500 lifetime deals.
Yeah.
Lifetime is 10, 20 years, depending on how long you want to do wholesaling for. But an agent has way more potential than one seller. So you're working smarter, not harder in that sense.
Mhm.
And then when you're working with the unicorn agents, they always have the ones you want. They're not giving you just brand new renovated properties. They're giving you something ugly that someone doesn't really want to move into, that's going to be dirt cheap and someone needs to fix and
Mhm.
has all the problems. That's what you want, is the problems. So we work with those unicorn agents who have the problems that we can fix.
What is your strategy here that you use to find deals?
So right now we're doing agent outreach. We started doing MLS outreach at first, but since he was at school and I was working full time as a nurse, it was a little bit hard to, have enough time to sit down, look through Zillow or Realtor.com, whatever we're using, find the properties, call the agents. They had to pick up at the first time, of course. Most of them don't. Um, or then afterwards follow up with them, run numbers at that time. So it was just like it wasn't suitable for our schedule. So we switched a little bit, and instead of doing MLS outreach, we started doing agent outreach, and that's what we've been doing since January 2024. And we do SMS first. So we text them, reaching out, introducing ourselves, and asking if they could help us with a purchase. And then when they respond, that's when we explain what we're looking for, and if they agree to work with us, then we follow up with them every 4 weeks or so.
So you guys are full time now.
Yeah.
So when you first started, you weren't, though, right? You were
No.
working before. Okay, so tell us how you made being an entrepreneur at the same time you're working full time jobs. I think people struggle with that. How did you make that work?
So I definitely think that getting a CRM was key to make it work.
Okay.
Just to keep things organized, and having automations that would free up my time
Okay.
was just crucial. It was like so basic. Um, Before I had a CRM, it was just everything manual. We didn't follow up, which was
Yep.
why we were not getting deals, of course. Um, so yeah, I've got Go High Level right now, and I have all my automations built up, so I don't have to manually follow up. If I don't want to, like, let's say I have, they tell me, well, follow up with me tomorrow because I will be able to tell you something more. That's when I follow up manually. But otherwise, it's just in autopilot.
Okay.
The CRM for sure.
Gotcha. So now you've crushed 20 deals last year. You've already got 5 this year. So you're like, what is that? Somebody's gonna kill me on the math over here. Is that a quarter of the way, or something?
Yeah,
Like,
25%.
yeah, so quarter of the way already. And so, have you thought about growth now within your company, and how do you see that picture or playing out?
So I don't want to necessarily build a big wholesaling business. I mean, I do want to scale it to a point, but my long-term goal is more building a portfolio that makes me be able to live the life I want. So wholesaling right now is for active income, so I can get the cash and start buying. This year I'm going to be buying as well in Orlando. The goal for this year is 2 flips and 2 burrs. So, flips for active income as well. And everything we get from wholesaling and flips, it's going to go towards the burrs, whether it's for down payments or, for paying the mortgage quicker. But yeah, it's not going to be, you're not going to see me scaling a big wholesaling company.
Okay. And to help Matt with this, what is a burr?
A burr is how do you call it? A strategy that is basically buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and repeat. So you basically You would look at numbers very similarly as you were as if you were looking as a flip, but you basically don't have to take into account commissions when you list it because you're not listing it again. You're just renting it. So margin is a little bit bigger for burrs. Well, I guess it depends in whether you want to leave money in the deal or if you're fine with, or the other way around, if you want to leave money in the deal or not. If you want to do a perfect burr, it would basically be you're putting some money down, but then when you refinance, you get it back. And you basically can reuse that money for the next one. And the idea is that tenants cover for the mortgage and it still leaves you a little cash flow at the end of the month.
Right.
So the more, the faster you pay the mortgage, the quicker you're gonna be able to get the full amount of the rent as cash flow. So let's say the average rent in Orlando is like $2,500, more or less. When I buy the property, I'm gonna buy it for, let's say, $100,000, and it's gonna be worth 300. So I have that spread there. So after putting like another 100,000 in work, I'm gonna have 100,000 in equity basically.
Mhm.
I can refinance that after finding a tenant, get my money back, and let's say monthly payments are $2,100 and tenants are paying $2,500. So there's $400 in there that a part of that I'm going to save for, for capital expenses and everything that I have to save in case something happens. And then another part of it I'm going to keep for myself. So you're not getting much. So you're not going to be able to be financially free at first. The idea is to be able to pay that property fast with active income from wholesaling and flipping so that you can get the full $2,500 for yourself and don't have to pay the bank for it.
Right.
Does it make sense? I don't think
Yeah, no,
I
it makes
explained
total
myself
sense.
very well.
Yeah, I actually did. As a guy who knows nothing about this, I followed every part of that. So that's
Okay. So yeah,
so in an
that's
ideal world, you are, tell me if I'm wrong, you are giving up a little bit of the cash flow today to be able to have additional equity in the deal to where then you can use that additional equity to buy additional properties to establish a larger portfolio so that in 10 years from now, assuming you paid off a lot of these mortgages, you now have 100% of the cash flow to where you can now replace any income you have down the road, right?
exactly. Yes.
Ah, look at me. Got it. So I'm not going to, I sent Matt a video the other day of a well-known influencer in the real estate world. I want to see if you can explain this one to me because Matt couldn't explain it to me. So the guy says, if you've got a 15-year-old and if you're a 15-year-old and you get $300 of allowance a month, you should get a property that pays you $30 a month for that $300 allowance a month. How does that work? How can I get a property for $300 allowance that will then pay me $30 a month, but I also have a property at the age of 15? Can you explain that one to me?
So I guess you don't need any money to buy properties at all.
Okay.
It just depends on who you find to fund the property. So the $300 is just a random number, in my opinion. I mean, at 15 years old, you do have to have good connections, or your dad needs to have good connections, of course.
This person's dad does have good connections.
Okay, so I don't think it's gonna have any issues.
Yeah.
I was just actually talking to someone in Astro. He's a hard money lender, and he was offering 100% financing and 100% of the for the purchase price and the rehab costs. So
Yeah.
you don't have to put any money down there. Or if you did, you can still find private money lenders that would give you, the gap lending for the down payment. So you could purchase a house with no money down. And if you plan on keeping it when you're refinancing, when you refinance it, if you did numbers right, you don't have to leave any money there. So you would still be able to pay the lenders that lent you the money.
So let me ask you this question. And this goes back to the original kind of explanation you gave us around your strategy and your plan. What I heard you say is a lot of that I completely understand from a long-term investment perspective and creating long-term financial flexibility. But you also said that you and your fiance do this full time. So what I didn't hear, which was how do you supplement the income now that you're doing this full time to actually be able to make a living for yourself when you're putting out most of the day-to-day profits into future expenses, how do you make enough money to survive under that landscape? Or are there a couple different strategies where some of the strategies are cash flow and the other ones are building the portfolio? Explain that to me.
Um, do you mean like right now or
Yeah.
when?
As in, if you don't have income coming in from a 9 to 5, right? And it sounded like you're saying, hey, on that same exact scenario, I buy a house for 300 grand. I buy it for 100,000. I rehab it. I've got $100,000 in equity. My mortgage on that 2,200 bucks. The person pays 2,500 bucks. I make $300. I'm keeping that. A little bit is cash flow, but a little bit of that is a reserve in case of repairs or expenses. How do you cover income cash flow if most of your value is being placed in reserving the equity and keeping that equity to find additional properties? Is it that you have some that you use in a portfolio aspect and some that you're actually doing wholesale flipping, and that wholesale flipping expense is your income?
Yeah, so I think if I understood right, the answer would be that wholesaling and flipping is where we get the money to live off of and also pay for the properties that we're gonna keep. I
Got
don't
it.
know if that
Okay.
was the answer that you were looking
Yeah, I
for.
mean, Matt, is that the question I'm asking? I think you get what I'm asking, right?
Yeah, that's what you were asking. Yeah, and that's what. Yeah, so you kind of alluded to that a little bit about it, and so that's one of the big reasons why we wholesale, right? Is Brent Daniels told me this at a mastermind that I was with, and he was like, start with wholesaling and build yourself a cash flow machine. So this is your cash flow. Like you get $30,000. If you can get $40,000 a month, you have now money to play with. And if your flip goes wrong, because that happens in flips, like things go wrong, and you could lose money. Like you're not just done. You have money
Exactly.
coming in. And my thought process on wholesaling was, let's build this business. Not only does it help us understand how to find properties and acquire, which I think is one of the biggest struggles with real estate investors, finding good properties and taking them down, creating a business where it creates cash flow for me to use on other areas of real estate. And also just to have properties come in that I can pick and choose from. I'm like, I like
Exactly.
this property. I'm taking it for myself. Wholesale the rest of them. I think that you're kind of thinking the same thing.
I mean, you can still buy with a W-2, but it's just that why would you be working as a W-2 when you could be making the same amount of money or even more like I am now? Uh, and still, I'm in the real estate space. I am talking, seeing, hearing real estate all the time. And like you were saying, I can cherry pick from the properties I'm getting from myself or from other wholesalers. I can cherry pick and get the best ones for me. I just think it's more efficient, like time efficient. I'm getting money and I'm still doing my real estate thing. So everything is related and it's easier for me to get opportunities. I have buyers that still work at W-2. Um, and they, of course, get late to the deals I send them
Mm-hmm.
because they're working their job. And then when they get home is when they see the deals, but they might be gone already. So
Right.
if you are able to, and you are at a point where you can leave your W-2 and focus on real estate, I would definitely encourage you to do it because I think it's gonna pick up real fast after you do it.
Mm-hmm.
I got a couple other things that are kind of maybe go a little off the path of how you guys are getting deals, but I think for me, really interesting. And Matt, get us back on path if you need to. But for me, one thing I'd be really interested to know is what's the trick of working in a room all day with the fiance, working in a business with the fiance, having a life outside of that. Matt does that with his wife. They both work in the business together and raise a beautiful family together. And at times my wife, and have played that role now, my wife is kind of a little off in the shadows and being able to put her feet up a little bit more. But talk me through that dynamic. Has that been a struggle and a change, the day in and day out of living together, working together, playing together, all those things?
I mean, it's not going bad because otherwise he wouldn't have asked me to marry him. So it's definitely not going bad. But I mean, it is kind of a struggle sometimes just because we are two people with very strong personalities and we like to be right all the time, both of us, and I admit that. I don't like to be wrong. But the good part is that we divided the work where he focused more on the acquisitions and I focus more on the dispo. Of course, we support each other when we need it. mostly I help him with acquisitions, which is the where we have the biggest load of work. But I think that dividing the work and each one making sure that we know what we're supposed to do is very important. And just communication, very clear communication. We sometimes may get in arguments, but if we set clear expectations of what we want or what we expect, I think it's always easier to understand how the other one is feeling.
If we go back to being a newbie here and we go back to somebody looking to jump into this and get into creative finance, where do you think they should start?
I think you have to ask yourself, what are your actual goals?
Yep.
Do you want to be a buyer? Do you want to source your own deals? Right? Do you want to do wholesale? I think wholesale is a great start for anybody that's brand new. If you're trying to get comfortable being on the phone, even going and working in somebody else's wholesale business, by the way, you do not need, in my opinion, as a new person with so many opportunities to go work with other people, I can't see a day where I would start a whole wholesale business from scratch on my own without potentially working with somebody else. I think wholesale is a great place to start because it teaches you about cash. Then you elevate into other things. But if you're looking to learn about creative finance, of course, you've got the creative finance or creative real estate with Pace Morby Facebook page. That's a great place to go. A ton of stuff on YouTube. And you can connect with people that are in the Sub-2 community, but there's also other communities that you can connect with. And really, you can find a local title company or an attorney that are familiar with creative finance and work with them too. I think a lot of people forget that, those companies also, like Matt, you have several companies that, title companies that you've worked with, as do I. And they're telling me things that I haven't thought of from a legal standpoint because they deal with them every day. So that's a great place to start as well. But again, you have to define, are you trying to be a buyer? Do you want to source your own deals? Or do you want to go find deals for other people? But in that case, do you want to be a connector? There's so many different things you can do. I mean, again, I've connected deals for people and get paid on them all the time. Technically, that's what my entire business, for the most part, is about, other than the properties I own in my midterm rental business. I'm a connector. I connect people to opportunities, and I get paid for it, and they do too.
Do you see more people like trying a bunch of things and trying to be an entrepreneur, or do you think people have worked jobs and like now they're tired of it and just want to start something on their own?
I think it's a mix. So everyone hates their 9 to 5 job pretty much. I mean, that's like the most, that's the most common thing you hear. Everyone hates their 9 to 5. But the difference between someone who hates their 9 to 5 and someone who actually wants to be an entrepreneur is hugely different. And that goes to the dedication that they're willing to put in, like you did. You hated your 9 to 5 and you were willing to do all the work necessary in order to get that deal and then sacrifice 5 months to get to your next deal.
Yep.
Most people are not willing to do that. They're not even willing to put in the 2 weeks that your VA has done. Like they bail out before that happens. They think, I'm going to do this. I'm going to make all this money. It's going to fall from the sky. It's going to be so easy. I'm going to quit my 9 to 5.
Mm-hmm.
And then they go, I don't want to do the work.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, then you don't want to be an entrepreneur, right? Because it's not money falling from the sky. It's, I work 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. and sometimes I cry on my bathroom floor because I think I want to work a 9 to 5. Okay?
Yeah.
So like that's entrepreneurs. That's the real life of it. It's not, I'm going to wake up at 7 and go and be at work by 8 and leave by 5. And then I'm going to go watch 3 hours of TV and then probably take my kids to sports, make dinner, go to bed and do it all over again tomorrow. That's not entrepreneur. And if that's what you want, then you're working a 9 to 5. Mm-hmm. If you want to work 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. and sometimes cry on your bathroom floor.
Wholesalers use a virtual assistant and maybe some of the places where they use a virtual assistant incorrectly or in a wrong way. What would you say?
That's interesting. I've never thought about the wrong way that they use a virtual assistant. I've just always used my virtual assistants to do the things that I don't want to do or the things that need to be done consistently over and over and over and over and over again that take time that I don't have the time to do. So like cold calling, reading every single text message that comes in from the AI and the agent to make sure that things didn't go haywire. Resending emails if an agent asks for an email resend. Like little things like that are things that can easily be missed, which will lead you to missing a deal. So having a VA do that in the way structure that we do is important.
What are some of the keys that you, or what are some of the things you do when you're building a buyer's list and to create those relationships with your buyers to build the trust?
So first of all, I get my buyers from tax records. I don't like doing Facebook. If I do, I make sure that I vet them really, really well. And then to build a trust, I just think it can't be built on the first conversation. It's gonna be when they start seeing that my deals are good deals, that I don't overprice them, or that I don't inflate the ARV, or that I stick to their buy box and I just don't scan everything. It just takes time in for them to see that I am professional. My way of communicating is clear and transparent. So just with time, do your thing, and just with time, they'll see that you're good.
What are y'all's typical KPIs on acquisitions and dispositions?
So we reach out to 360 agents a day right now. For the follow up, I can't give you a number because it depends on how many people um,
Or in the
responded
campaign?
to. Yeah. So
Yep.
there's different follow ups. There's the follow up from the outreach. If they didn't reply, we have a bunch of follow ups, like the day after, 2 days after, or after 5 days. Then there's the client offer follow up. If we made an offer and it got declined, we put them in another follow up so that we send them a message every 2 weeks or so, to see if that's still available. And then there's the do you have anything follow up, and that's we have about what 5,000 agents in that follow up.
Yeah, around that.
About around 5,000 agents in that follow up. So I don't have a number for each day how many of them are getting a text, but
Sure.
because it just depends on when they were added. But basically 5,000 agents on follow up, and then other KPIs. Well, for this year we have 9 offers accepted, and we have assigned 5 deals. And I try to reach out to 50 buyers a day. It may be slower on days where the acquisition requires most of our time, but that's my goal: 15 new buyers a day, or 15 new conversations with buyers.
How many offers you say you put out a day?
It depends, but always more than 7. The average is about 7. Because we can't control how many deals we get that are worth putting an offer. So we are mostly focused on how many people we talk to, and then if they have a deal, great, then we'll put an offer.
All right, I'm breaking a rapid fire question here to say one thing. The fact that you have that process down, the follow ups on the properties and things like that is so important. Like Matt said, we do a lot of coaching for people who sign up for VAs with us, especially if they're newer. And they'll I'm looking at the stuff and I'm like, all right, they're not having any success. What's going on? And then I get on a call with them and I pull up their CRM, and I'm like, why do you have no opportunities added into your CRM? Like, oh, we haven't put anything in there. We're just working on them. How are you following up with them? We're not. So I'm like, yeah, so you can do this all day long, but you're not going to have success because you're not following up.
The likelihood of getting a deal on the first outreach is minimal. Like
Very minimal.
I got 1 this year. I mean, it's still January, but it's very, very unlikely. Most of the offers that got accepted were from previous offers that I made and got declined. Every time we get an address, we create an opportunity, and we put them in the declined follow up offer. And then if we see that it's not worth putting an offer, we'll just erase it. But every time we get an address, we create an offer.
Every single one.
An opportunity. Yeah.
Yeah, we do the same thing. We put it in lost and abandoned. Even if it's like one that's like a new build and we're not going to work on it, we put it in lost and abandoned, but we keep it on a CRM to continue to look at it. You never know, creative might come up. Awesome. And all of our information for social media handles will be in the description of this video as well. Tanisha, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.